Thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to be reviewing the CYCPLUS AS2 Ultra Mini Electric Bike Tire Inflator. The CYCPLUS Ultra is the latest pump in CYCPLUS's extensive AS2 electric pump lineup, and it really focuses on size and weight. It's the smallest and lightest pump they currently offer with an LED screen, which makes it really easy to stash in a pocket or saddlebag. Packaging wise, you can see really simple. You have the green and black coloring with the big graphic of the pump right on the front. On the back side, you can see multiple languages with some additional specs about the pump itself. I'll go ahead, we'll just open this up, we'll go over the specs. So retail price on this is $119. To achieve the lightweight, this one actually has a magnesium alloy outer body, and it still has the LED screen, so it makes it really easy to see what pressure you're at. It has a 400 milliamp battery, which gives you up to 2 tire inflations from empty, from 0 to 80 psi for a 700 by 28 tire. It's also capable to do up to 120 psi, and it's USB-C type chargeable, and it can be fully charged in within 25 minutes, so really quick charging times. As far as what comes with it, you can see the pump itself. The silicone case is pre-installed, but you can see underneath it you have the metal body. You have this nice little bag too, so this is great if you want to keep it dry so you can stuff it in your pocket and not have to worry about it getting wet. Then you have the additional accessories in a bag. So you have a really short extension hose, and this is a Schrader extension hose. Then you have a USB Type-C charging cable. You have a ball needle attachment, which you can thread directly onto the pump or onto the extension. And then you do have a additional Presta adapter for the hose. And then finally you have a spare rubber piece that actually can be swapped out for the rubber piece that comes in here. So it's nice to have the backup if you were to lose it or to were to get damaged. Now let's take a look at the weight of the pump. So the pump by itself without the case comes in at only 88 grams, so right there at the advertised weight. If you want to use the Schrader, you'll have to use the extension. So the extension by itself is 13 grams. Visually, the CYCPLUS AS2 Ultra is nearly identical to the other AS2 pumps with the same compact rectangular profile and black metal body. It's a little bit smaller in terms of height and width at 68 by 47.5 by 28 millimeters compared to the AS2 Pro, but that means it's only 5 millimeters shorter and 1.4 millimeters more narrow. So really not that much, but it does pay off in the lighter weight. So one of the big reasons this is so much lighter than the other model is the fact they have a magnesium body. So it's a magnesium alloy here, so it definitely drops a couple pounds. And then the battery is a little bit smaller as well. So it's 400 milliamp versus 420. That's probably one of the key reasons. It's just a little bit smaller in terms of dimension, but really super light at under 100 grams. On the outside, you have the big CYCPLUS branding. So CYCPLUS on both sides. The screen and buttons placed on the back side. And then on the front, you have the nozzle setup, but otherwise really clean design. Basic safety information kind of ghosted on there. And then there's no vents or anything. You just have the USB Type-C port on the top, which actually doubles as an air vent. So when you're inflating, this will actually let air go out. You do have some exposed hardware too, so you can see 2 bolts right here. But otherwise, really clean, simple design. Soft corners here, a little bit of a rounded edge on the bottom, but otherwise very compact, and you can see it fits in the palm of your hand. You have a silicone case, but they always look better without it. The silicone case helps insulate some of the heat and vibration, and you can see nearly transparent with the cutouts for the buttons here and the screen, as well as the nozzle and the top side, so you still have the venting. But you can definitely use it without it if you prefer not to have it on there. The user interface is also very simple, just like the other pumps. 3-button design, power button, and then you have the plus and minus. Pressing the plus and minus buttons adjusts the pressure. If you hold it down, you can see you can do a rapid change. So it makes it easier to get to the exact pressure you want. The screen is very simple too. So it's a simple LED screen. You have the pressure on top. So it shows the current pressure once you stop interacting with it, then target pressure when you're adjusting it. You have a 3-bar battery status indicator, and then the units here. Long holding the power button turns it on and off. And then you can also see it'll turn it on if you tap it. So as with all the other pumps, fairly loud as it's so small, but not too obnoxious. And then you can also change the units by holding the buttons down. So you can go between bar and PSI. The buttons themselves are pretty tiny, so you can see really small touch points. So not going to work well with gloves, but otherwise very simple to easy to use. No flashlights, no additional gear. And again, the USB Type-C port just exposed on top as it serves as your air vent. As far as the nozzle design, that's really the main differentiator between all these pumps these days. With this one, you actually have a cool design. So you have this thread-on cover, and you can use it from the factory. So out of the box is a Presta, but they've designed it so you can actually just swap between Schrader and Presta by doing a little part switch up. So you can see if I take these two pieces out, I have a main outer cover, and then this rubber piece, and that's why they actually include an additional rubber piece, as this could get damaged or lost while you're using it. So you have a spare one of these, and then you just orientate these in the correct direction, whether you want Presta or Schrader. The nice thing about this design is you don't have another piece, so if you're on the road, you don't have to carry additional pieces, you just unthread this and then rotate this in the right direction. The problem with this is you never really remember what you're doing, so you actually have to look up on the manual, do I put this long shaft outward or inward? But it has a very specific one, so I believe it's shaft inward and then the larger hole down for Presta, and then you just rotate on the outer cover. So it's both good and bad. The nice thing is, again, you don't have additional pieces, but when you're on the road or in 6 months, you're not going to remember which way to actually put these to make it operate correctly. You also have a thread-on design, so you can put on the hose. And then this hose is Schrader out of the box, so it gives you a little bit more access. And then you can thread on the Presta attachment. So they weren't that clever with this one. You can't just flip it or something. You do need an extra piece to go to Presta. Or you can take this off and then put on the ball adapter onto here or directly onto the pump itself. It's a pretty simple design, and it's nice that you can do Schrader and Presta right off the actual body itself. You don't need an additional piece, and you can see it's quite compact. So if you don't have the extension hose or you don't want it, you can see it's very easy to pack and take with you. Here you can see the AS2 Ultra in action. Very easy to put on your Presta pump. You just push down, has a little rubber around there to hold it in place. Set your pressure and then start going. It inflates pretty quickly, so definitely on par with one of the fastest pumps we've used, which is actually CYCPLUS AS2. And you can see the screen updates really quickly. It's not as fast as a floor pump, but a lot more portable. And you can see with our 700 by 28 tire from empty, we got to 65 PSI within about 52 seconds. It gets a little bit slower as the battery goes down. We got about 3.5 inflations, which is pretty impressive given the small size of this. Here you can see a little speed comparison with the CYCPLUS AS2 Pro on the left, and then the Trek Air Booster on the far right. You can see that both CYCPLUSs are pretty on par. It's a little bit slower, at least for this inflation with the battery level compared to the Pro, but almost similar. And then the number of inflations we got was about 3.5 before it finally shut off, which is pretty close to what we got with the AS2 Pro with the slightly larger battery. So it's pretty impressive. The big difference here is that it gets really hot. So with the Ultra, by the time we got to the third and fourth inflation, it became too hot to even hold. So we had to put on the silicone sleeve and the valve extender just to make it easier to use. So they've definitely got rid of some of the insulation in there. And that's one big downside of the smaller size. You do sacrifice some of the usability if you really want to use it back to back. But for more normal uses, you're just going to do popping or topping off or do a single inflation. It works really well and it's very small. We've actually reviewed the other AS2 pumps as well. So here we have the AS2 Pro, which is the most direct comparison. So you can see a little bit taller, slightly more wide with the Pro version. They both have the same screen, same buttons, and otherwise very similar designs. So they're definitely hard to tell apart. If you didn't have them directly in front of you, you wouldn't realize, but there is a nice weight difference. So the Ultra does drop a couple grams and you do feel it. So if you're a weight weenie, it's definitely a great choice. You get all the benefits of the fast inflation. A little bit smaller size. Also notice that the logo is a little bit brighter white here compared to the other ones, which were a little bit more subdued, but otherwise identical. And if you really want something super tiny, their non-screen version is probably the smallest one you can get. But you can see with this one, it actually is very similar. This is the original Cube version, which is just called the AS2 now. But it's pretty close, so they look like they're nearly identical. It's just a little bit more narrow here. And you don't get a gauge, which really doesn't make sense these days. You want to know what pressure you're at, rather than just doing it by feel. So it's nice that it's so compact, while still maintaining the screen. Then there's tons of options on the market as far as competition. There's the Coospo X1, which was recently released. You can see this one has a nice big screen. So with this one, you have bigger buttons, so a little bit easier to operate. Larger screen, so it looks a little bit more modern. And they actually have an exposed motor. So if I turn this on, you can see a little bit different sound, but you see it rotating compared to the CYCPLUS sound. And then if we turn on the AS2 Pro, you can see same display, a little bit louder. There's also the Coospo APB1. You can see a more unique design with this rounded design. Larger vents. With these you don't get any vents. But with this one they had an annoying flashlight feature, so double pressing to adjust the pressure would actually turn on the flashlight. Magicshine has their arrow, so you can see a little bit bigger. It has the exposed window as well. And you can see with this one, again, bigger screens on these, so it looks a little bit more modern. But same features, you just increase the pressure and then go. With this one, the sound is definitely different. So it kind of sounds like a duck call, and you can see the motor rotating, which is kind of cool. But it's definitely larger, so the Ultra is the smallest. Topeak also has their E-booster, so you can see quite a bit bigger. And you can see the big difference here is this whole top section. So this is their smart head. So rather than having to deal with those little small bits, you just rotate this dial to switch between Schrader and Presta if you want to connect this directly to a valve. And again, bigger screen, bigger buttons. So the CYCPLUS, you definitely have small buttons. And you can see even the plus and minus and the power are illuminated here. This little smart select is a cool feature, but you can see it definitely adds bulk. And if you use the extension hose, it actually doesn't matter what this is set to, which is one big downside. So you still have to use the proper adapters with the extension hose, which you probably need with this bigger body. And then finally, there's also the Trek Air Rush. Probably the one of the most polished pumps on the market. You can see dual color screen, big buttons, so really easy to operate. And you can see air vents on the side of the plastic body, so you don't have to deal with the hot body. But you can see size-wise, again, the Ultra just edges everybody out. It's a little bit smaller in just about every dimension and gives you similar performance, but you do have a slightly smaller battery. Now let's go over the pros and cons for the CYCPLUS AS2 Ultra. What we like about it is you have a lightweight construction. So it's one of the smallest electric pumps we've used with a gauge. Makes it really easy and portable. They also have very fast inflation with a pretty well-sized battery that's almost on par with the little bit larger battery on the AS2 Pro, which is really impressive. So you do get multiple inflations with this, depending on your tire size and in the inflation level. The negatives with this pump is just like the other AS2s. It has small buttons, so if you're using gloves, it's very hard to feel the buttons. It would be nice if they're larger. And also with the Ultra, the metal body becomes very hot to use with multiple uses. So if you're inflating 2 or 3 tires in a row, it becomes too hard to hold, and you really have to use the silicone case. That's one downside compared to the standard AS2 Pro, which didn't seem to have that issue for us. Taking everything into account, would give the pump a 9.0 out of 10. It's a compact and very portable electric pump, but does get a lot hotter with the metal body. Thanks for watching this review. Don't forget to like and subscribe. You can see more content from us on our website at thesweetcyclist.com, as well as follow us on Instagram at thesweetcyclist. This is The Sweet Cyclist reminding you to enjoy the ride.